candidates to get addicted. Indeed, the children of very wealthy people, very senior leaders in this country, very famous people, captains of industry, people who own factories have become addicted. It's a serious problem, and parents are suffering in silence. I want to beseech you in this room today to know that you have a responsibility to fight this thing. And your own children are potential recruits into drug taking and eventually becoming addicted and zombies. And there is nothing you shall do. As we fight this menace, think of your own children. Think what would happen if it is your child. Those young men and women who have been addicted to this thing could be your own children. I want to appeal to you as parents to give this thing your all. I therefore want to discourage any blame game in this room. I want us to look for a solution. A multi-agency approach on how to eradicate this problem, and cooperation between the investigators, the ones who arrest people, the ones who do prosecution, so that we can save the generation that is not already addicted. We have a program that we are working on with the county governments on how to deal with the ones who are already in trouble, and it's a huge percentage. We are trying to come up with a rehabilitation center in every county to deal with those who are already addicted. We have talked to the governors to consider, once we map all the addicted persons using the community health volunteers, which is an exercise that has begun, the county governments will consider to give them NHIF cover that can take them to rehabilitation centers that are quite expensive. An ordinary rehabilitation center is between 50 to 120,000 per month, and you require a minimum of 3 months. It's a very expensive affair. But the job ahead, those of you here today, I included, the DVP included, the regional commissioner included, is what can we do to stop those who are not yet addicted getting there. That's a responsibility we have to do as parents, as Kenyans, as leaders in our own right. So, Bwana DPP, these officers raised serious concerns, which I shared with you, and I want to thank you for having suggested that you come here together to discuss. One of the issues that I had a problem with, I'm not a lawyer, but I have been a public servant. I was in this criminal justice system for many years, and I understand a little. I don't know much, but I understand a little. Is that there is no lacuna in law on this matter of controlling drugs and alcohol. There has been a national law, the alcoholic drink something, that has been in existence. With the advent of counties, they came up with their own regulations. But that law was not repealed, as far as I know, unless I'm told the contrary. So the excuse that some counties do not have laws to regulate the fight against illicit brews is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. If any prosecutor is using that as an excuse, that is wrong, as far as I'm concerned, unless I'm guided differently. That law has never been repealed. It is in place. As a prosecutor, we request you to discuss with the people in your county and advise them. Since the county have no regulations, this is a law, can you use it? And that will suffice. But to correct that issue of disharmony in the laws in the region and across the country, I had a meeting last Friday with 247 members of the county assemblies and the 5 speakers from the 5 counties. And I didn't invite the leader of the majority from the National Assembly, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. And we have agreed this coming weekend, 4 representatives of each county will convene in Naivasha in a retreat that my office will sponsor, and where we'll also seek you to give us people from DCI, from the National Police Service, from the DPP, from the Attorney General, to help our MCAs to come up with uniform law across the 5 counties. And the assemblies agreed. Immediately the laws have been drafted. After public participation, they will give the laws priority, and we give ourselves a target that the laws must be in place before the 30th of June. So we'll have laws. And we have asked the members of the county assembly to consider, and which they have said they'll consider, to put very stringent penalties that are deterrent, especially on the producers and wholesalers of drugs and alcohol. We have told them to put very stringent fines and imprisonment terms for people who are found to manufacture illicit alcohol. We have told them to come up with very stringent penalties for those who peddle. We have equally requested them to have very stringent penalties for those who consume. We have asked them to look at laws on how vehicles that transport changa and other illicit brews will be forfeited. We have asked them to consider shutting down premises that have been found to be involved in this trade, so that they are shut down forever. And I can tell you, they are raring to go because they are leaders and they know the cry of the population. The people of this country, parents are in tears. I can hardly go to the village because of the cry of our women, because they have lost their children. So the assemblies will do their bit. By the 30th of June, we'll have laws in the 5 counties, and good laws. In the meantime, I request the prosecutors to work with our officers to use the national law to prosecute those who have been found to be involved in breaking the law in matters drugs, in matters illicit brews. I request the prosecutors to work closely with our officers and guide them. I request you to consider training officers. The OC crime, the OCSs, the DCI officers have some short seminars. Explain to them what they need to do for a successful prosecution, so that we all work together. Let us not meet in court where the prosecutor is saying what has been brought does not meet the threshold, but the officers are not even aware. Let us have a multi-agency approach. I plead with you, I request you on behalf of the President, on behalf of the people of Kenya, that you must help us. The situation is bad, and much as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution is independent, that independence can only go so far. You depend on the other arms of government for resources to run your offices. If we lose the entire productive age group, our economy will collapse, and there will be no resources to fund your activities. You cannot work in isolation. All these agencies are interdependent. There is somewhere we have a convergence. Again, if we don't prosecute people and we say we cannot use this or that law, and there is breakdown of law and order, the country will come to a standstill. and there will be anarchy. So I want to request you kindly to consider that you have regular meetings in your counties as the agencies in the criminal justice system and agree on how not just to fight drug and substance abuse, but all other forms of crime. I believe there is value when people work together. I believe your work will be much easier as an investigator if you work well with the prosecutor. We are all doing the same job. If the investigators do not work, the prosecutors will have no work in court because they don't go to arrest, they don't go to investigate. So you are joined together at the hip. If the investigators don't work with the prosecutors, they have nowhere to take the suspects. It's a mutual relationship, and I want to plead with you to work together. And I don't want us to blame each other. It will not help us. Let us begin from where we are, discuss the issues, what the investigators are saying. Prosecutors, please listen. What the prosecutors are saying, that you bring cases that cannot be sustained before a court of law, also listen. Let us address those shortcomings because they can be addressed. Where there is will, there is way. And I really want to beseech you to work together. This war must be won. And it will be won by concerted effort among the men and women in this room, agreeing that we have a problem, a national problem, and a serious one. And agreeing that we have a responsibility to save the next generation. Not just as officers of government, but even as parents and as responsible members of the society. I don't think any one of you is happy to fight drunken people lying on the road on your way home. None of them. None of you. The IG told us in Nyeri how stressed he was when he went home and found boys lying on the road and his motorcade could not pass and they are dead drunk. And when he told them that they are doing injustice to their bodies and what they are taking is harmful to their livers, they asked him to take the liver away so that they can continue drinking. That is how bad the situation is. This is a young people say, chukua hiyo maini ndio pombe iteremke. Myself as deputy president, my neighbors, when I go home, I'm embarrassed. I cannot get 10 people to work in my farm. 10. I have to import workers. All my neighbors, their children are lost. And we ask ourselves, what kind of a country are we leading? And that is a question the president and I have asked ourselves. And we have said it's not possible. It's not possible. All these things we are doing, these roads we are building is for who? These cooperative societies we are creating are for who? This hustler fund we created, who is going to borrow? The first responsibility from our government today is to save our productive age from drug abuse and alcoholism. And I'm inviting you to join us in this war with tremendous respect. The DPP and your team, we have no intention whatsoever to encroach on your independence. You know the Ruto administration respects the independence of independent institutions. Today, in Cabinet, we have approved the increase of the judiciary budget from 18 billion to 22 billion. That is how serious we are in terms of respecting independent institutions and allowing them to work. But where there are gaps, allow us to engage you so that we make progress for this country. We cannot interfere with your independence. We respect it. But where there are gaps, you allow us to do. And I do this in my role. One of my functions in my office that I was given by the President in Executive Order number 1 of 2023 is to coordinate constitutional commissions and independent offices, which is what I'm doing today. Because somehow we must get synergy along the way. None of us can work in isolation. We all work for the people of Kenya. We need each other along the way. Where there are issues of individual complaints, of corruption, of excessive behavior, they come to us on a daily basis. We'll give them to the DPP in confidence to investigate and take action. Already I told him what has been brought to my attention. Not all of us are rogue. 95% of officers are good, but 5% always damage the reputation of the rest. There are police officers who take bribes to defeat this war and other wars. There are prosecutors who tell suspects you will be taken nowhere. This matter will come before me, it will go nowhere. And it's on record and we have the information. We'll share it in confidence. But I'm saying, I want to challenge you. If you take money from drug traffickers so that they peddle drugs to destroy the children of other people, I want to tell you will never know peace. And God will never forgive you. How cruel can you be? How cruel can you be to take money from drug peddlers so that they continue destroying and killing children of other people? Even your own children will never know peace one day. Please don't take drug money. Don't take money from people who peddle drugs. Don't take money to protect people who are manufacturing illicit brews to destroy an entire generation. Be satisfied with your salary. But I want to say 95% of our officers in the criminal justice system are good people. The 5% is the rotten potato in a sack. It's just like the case that is happening in Kilifi. Like any other segment of society, even the church has some rogue people. But we cannot condemn the entire church because of the activities of 2 or 3 pastors. Just like we have a few police officers who are rotten, a few prosecutors who are rotten, a few pastors who are rotten, a few politicians who are rotten. It's a reflection of society. So we don't want people also to condemn the church in its entirety because of the excesses of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pastors. They are just a reflection of society. That is why we have some people in prison and others outside here. The same way we don't want a blanket condemnation of our prosecutors, we don't want a blanket condemnation of our investigators. What we need to do is to wind out the 5%, and we will. I have put a mechanism to oversight this exercise in Central Kenya, a foolproof mechanism to oversight it. And I am following. Even I was in Botswana. I want to commend the police commander in Kiambu for the good job that you have done over the weekend. They arrested Bangi worth almost 300 million. Your officers were offered money and they refused. That is patriotism. That is patriotism. And we are very proud of those officers. That Bangi can add up to your own child. You take money on that Bangi, it adds up to your own child. I really want to thank our officers for the good job that they have done in the region. I am following, and so far they are doing a good job. I want to request the prosecution side to support them. I want to request you to support them and work together so that they also don't get demoralized. What happened in Nyandarua after our meeting in Nyeri, a raid was done and nobody was prosecuted and the officers were very demoralized, and the suspects went home mocking the officers. Even as they were being arrested, they were mocking them, saying, "We will just come back here, we will reach home before you." That's what the suspects say. And sure as December 25 is Christmas, they actually reached home before the officers. because the officers were very demoralized and the suspects were jubilant. So they went home to brag to everybody. Sisi tuko sawa pale kwa prosecution. Hakuna bado tutaenda. Tumeambiwa na prosecution Nyandarua haina sheria. The prosecutors are telling wananchi there is no law. Yet there is a national law in place. How do you tell wananchi hakuna sheria na iko sheria? So, in our various ways of oversight, where there are gaps that involve individual officers, we will raise them up with the concerned people, and we will demand action. We will demand action, because we also have a responsibility as a government to do what is right. And we'll oversight this exercise, and we are also fair people, we are not malicious. I really want to commend the prosecution in Nyeri and the magistrate in Nyeri. There was a case where a drug peddler was given a bail of 15 million. And they cannot raise it. They are in Kingongo GK prison. And I'm getting a good report about the prosecutors in Nyeri and the magistrate in Nyeri. And wananchi are saying now things are working. But in Thika, we have a problem. We have a problem in Thika. We have a problem in Kiambu. We need some action from Kiambu. The police, the DCI, they are doing their job. Let the prosecution in Kiambu and the courts do their job also, so that we also support each other. And if this prosecution is being done in Nyeri, there is no reason why it cannot happen in Thika. There is no reason. There is no reason. So mine is to wish you well and leaders say, please, let us help our country. Let us be patriotic. Let us be mindful of our young people. These are our children. We are all parents. This could have been your children. You are lucky they are not. But they could have been. Treat these children like your own. Be a parent. Let us go back to the old ways, where we were allowed to pinch children who are not yours if they were doing the wrong thing. Of course, that is not possible today. But let us care for the children of other people the way we care for our own. A child of a deputy president, a child of DPP, a child of the RC, a child of the deputy DPP are all potential drug takers. The only way to protect even your own children, those of your sisters, those of your brother, is to make sure these drugs are not available anywhere. That's the only way your children are safe, alongside the children of other people. And these children, you don't live with them 24 hours. When you go to work, they go out there to their peers and their friends. Even if yours does not take, his or her friend is taking. You know about peer pressure. Within a short time, your child starts becoming a zombie. You never took action and you are in a position to. You ignored it, you took some little money, you decided this is not your problem, let the children of other people suffer. Mine is okay, I'm a big person, mine is insulated from drugs and alcohol. Why aren't you? You never know what will hit you. If I tell you the people who are calling me today, since we started this fight, big people, filthy rich, billionaires, they are saying, Deputy President, please help us. We have been suffering in silence. We have lost our own children, and we are suffering in silence. This war has 100% support of the President and the government, and 105% of the people of Kenya. I've never seen a war that has so much support. Please, in your deliberations this afternoon, come up with a modus operandi and a framework of how the various agencies and the prosecution can work together to save our children, to protect the next generation, and to ensure that the biggest productive age is not destroyed and removed from gainful employment and building of our country. With those many remarks, once more I want to thank you for taking your time to travel from your duty stations. We don't take it for granted. We are indeed very grateful. It is my hope and trust that your engagement here today will translate into a gain for mankind, for our people, and more so for the young generation that is endangered by drug abuse and substances. Please, I plead with you with humility and respect that it is possible to save this generation, and you have the capacity to do so. The law is on your side. You only have to work together with the determination, with a sense of purpose. And one day, probably, when the history of how an entire generation was saved from extinction, all of you here should have a chapter that you played a role or another. I want to thank you. Asanteni sana.